Yo, what is up everybody? My name is Jay, and today I am doing a Q&A session about video games, answering some questions given to me by some generous folks from social media, mostly Twitter. So, without further ado, let's get on into it. Question comes from Neo64. What do you hope for the Silent Hill 2 remake, and do you believe it'll be good? So, what do I hope for? Well, I hope it's good, first of all. Um, I hope that it manages to capture the same haunting horror feel as the original game did, even though I didn't play a lot of it, but I do recall being genuinely claustrophobic in the apartments when I never had claustrophobia. So yeah, I hope the remake makes that happen with me. Um, I also hope that the game doesn't hold back on exploring the themes and sensitive subject matters that the original did. Although I imagine that in today's climate, people are going to be like, about it. But, that's just them being idiots. But do I think it'll be good? I hope, given that the development team, Bluebird team, they have a mixed reception from what I have seen. So hopefully it'll be good. But yeah, that's really just my main hopes, that not only is it good, but that it'll be a faithful remake and that it will capture the same essence as the original did. And who knows, with this remake, it may even spark interest with people, new people, trying to find the original game and play it. As long as it's not the HD remaster, which I have opinions about those, but I'll get to those later. But overall, hope it's a good game, hope it's just as scary, and hope it doesn't hold back on the sensitive subjects the original game talked about. So, I never got permission to use this guy's name, so I just won't mention it at all. But he asks, do you think Nintendo has declined in quality, or is it just gaslighting on Nintendo's part to make more money from the products being made lower quality, and they just refuse to actually let their customers know what is actually going on? I'm gonna be real, I don't really play Nintendo, but I don't think that their quality has gone down. I mean, like, just this year alone, like, Tears of the Kingdom. So, like, and I don't think that's enough to really convince the idea, but I don't think that they've declined in quality. And I don't really think it's a guess. Like, oh my god, oh my god, I completely forgot. Super Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG. Like, those came out this year, and those are pretty solid games. Um, so honestly, no, I don't think it's a gaslighting thing, and I don't think they've declined in quality. So, um, next question actually comes from one of my bros, Spade the Rabbit. Where did your love for gaming come from, and is there an origin, or is it just merely something you do to pass the time? So, when I was younger, it was a thing to just merely pass the time, because back then the games I had were Crash, Tekken, Mario Kart, Sonic Riders, um, Gex 3, and yeah, that's really about all I mostly played, and yeah. Um, But the game that really changed my whole perspective on gaming was Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, actually. It opened my eyes to the idea that, games can be just more than just games. They can actually have story that's just as good as, like, cinema and, like, books. So really my love of gaming stemmed from kind of from both, really. Just from, the joy of playing games, but also from, like, games being more than just passing the time type of games as well. So, yeah, technically there's an origin, and it's kind of both. Something to do to pass the time, and, unique stories to experience that you couldn't get in cinema. So, next question comes from Stitch. What's your favorite survival horror game? I'm gonna be real, aside from, like, Resident Evil, I have very little, like, exposure to, like, survival horror games. The most I can think of off the top of my head that ain't Resident Evil was briefly Silent Hill 2, Fatal Frame, Made It Out of the Black Water? Yeah, I still haven't beaten that game. I plan on to. I did play, I don't know you would call Slender Man survival horror, concerning you die no matter. Well, except for the arrival, but, But, with what I'm experienced with as of right now, I'm probably just gonna have to go by default Resident Evil. That's even tough to ask, because since it's mostly just Resident Evil I have more exposure to. Now the question is, what's my favorite Resident Evil game? And that's... I'd probably have to go with, like, 2 Remake, 7, and 4, the original. The remake is great, but, like, again, you can't beat the classics. So, excuse me. But I hope to get a chance to be more exposed to more horror games down the road, especially since I bought Silent Hill 2 for the original Xbox. So I just need to get me a functioning 360 and pop that in and experience it. And of course I still need to be Made in the Black Water. And but yeah, for the most part, just for right now, it probably would have to just be Resident Evil for right now as my favorite survival horror game. 4 specifically. Alright. So, now we have a bunch of multiple ones asked by the same individual, Lude Liker. His first question was, what made you start playing video games? Well, aside from having a game console when I was younger, sorry about that. Overall, just primarily the fun that video games can offer, really. What was your first console that made you start playing? So, technically it would be the PlayStation 2, because that's how I played, Prince of Persia. What's your number 1 favorite game and console, and why is it your favorite? So, number 1 favorite game, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. I know, a bit redundant, but it's the truth. The PS2 is actually my favorite console, and why? Like, I don't know, it just feels like the PS2 era of gaming, like, was just completely different than what we have today, in all honesty. And it's a feel that you're not going to really get back unless developers actually decide to. So, really. And finally, do I like the new gen in gaming? Yeah, but, like, again,
the best way I could describe it is go to like a gaming store that, or just like a vintage shop or whatever store that has games from like PlayStation 1, PS2, old school games. Walk down the aisles of like the PS2 games, Xbox games, and just like look at the covers of those games. And then go to like the PS4, PS5 section, and you notice a stark contrast in like feel. Like new gen games, like, they look amazing, they play amazing, but like, and I'm not saying they don't have soul, far from it, but it feels like back then, soul was like the primary contributor to like the success of these games.
Alright, next question from Show Mimi. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Do you think microtransactions are good as long as they allow the game to continue adding good content? I'm gonna be real, I have more negative opinions about microtransactions than I do about positive ones. I personally believe microtransactions should just fucking die. Like, just unironically not be a fucking thing anymore. But, um, if the game can still add good content, I feel like the worst kind of microtransactions are those in where like, oh, to experience the best and true experience out of this game, you have to like fork over money, which is like dumb on all fucking ends. But if the microtransactions are like minimal to the point where it's like not even there, but there, like, you know what I mean? Then I guess it's okay. I guess it's no different than like, oh, buying the costumes from the PlayStation Store when you can just simply unlock them in game. I guess it's no different than that. Like, I can still play the game, however I wish. I'm just buying costumes. Like, I don't know. I've just got more negative opinions about microtransactions. All right, next question comes from Starlight, and it's a it's a pretty humorous and risque one. What game has the best hentai? Um, I can think of three off the top of my head. Overwatch, because, well, let's be honest. Yeah. Resident Evil, because, yeah. And Street Fighter. Although, Tekken should have more. I can understand the lack of content from Devil May Cry. Um, Dead or Alive should actually have more. But, okay, before we get into more not safe for work content. Alright, next question comes from. They didn't want their name to be mentioned, so I'm just going to call them Anonymous. Do you have any game ideas of your own, such as characters, gameplay, aesthetic, etc.? Excuse me. And yes, I do. I have. They're never going to come to life because I'm not an artist or a game developer or anything like that, but it's still fun to just jot down notes about my ideas for like characters, games, and such. One game idea I had, Red Creek, would be a horror game that takes place in the town of Red Creek, Colorado, and you'd essentially be stalked by an invisible enemy in the snow, so it would like follow your footprints and all that stuff. But you'd also be fighting off against other forms of like body horror monsters. Um,
the one thing I strive within the concept of this game was that it's actually fucking scary and not just like, oh, an action game with a horror aesthetic. Um, Another game idea I had in mind was a cyberpunk like game, but like you play as a detective trying to solve a case that involves gruesome murders perpetrated by rogue androids. And it's kind of like it's more influenced by like Telltale's The Wolf Among Us. And its aesthetics would be more inspired by like Ghost in the Shell type of deal. And one core theme the game would explore is the overall idea of like true individualism, like not the right word I'd use. Like basically in this universe, people can alter their bodies to like extreme degrees to where they can even turn themselves into like android dogs if they wanted to. So really in a world like that, how can you stand out and be special? That's like kind of the theme that the game would explore. Um And another video game idea I had would be a fighting 3D game in which the goddess Amaterasu would essentially open up portals to multiple different universes and have various different curvy female characters fitting different types of archetypes, like a samurai girl, a android girl, cyberpunk, psychological survival horror, zombie survival horror, a western, cowgirl, agent, like, and just have them fight. It'd be kind of basically Dead or Alive, but more influenced by like Soul Calibur with its weapon usages and all that stuff. Just dumb fun, really. But I have multiple different ideas for like characters and different series overall that I have notes jotted down for. Okay. Um. All right. Hold up a second. Sorry about that. All right. Next question comes from Schnick. 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 1985. With all the talk about HD collections and whether or not they live up to the originals, I'll ask this. What is your personal favorite HD collection re-release, and what's your absolute least favorite? I think we can all agree that the least favorite would have to be the Silent Hill HD collection, due to the fact, and this isn't really on the fault of like the HD developers' fault. It's more Konami's because they lost the finished build of Silent Hill 2 and 3. So the team responsible for the HD, they were given unfinished build. So really, it's Konami's fault on that. But in terms of my favorite, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really have one. I mean, I guess other than like The Last of Us Remastered Part 1, not 2, because, that's dumb, but like, I wouldn't really say I'd have a favorite HD re-release, honestly. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But, I guess honestly, if anything, I mean, aside from The Last of Us Part 1 Remastered, Yeah, that's probably about it, honestly, that I can think of off the top of my head that I've actually played. Um, alright, next questions, and these are quite a bit. All from Alma. So, what is your favorite obscure video game? I don't know if I'd call it obscure, but it is underrated. The Suffering, a unique horror game from back during the PS2, Xbox days. What is your fave and worst video game? So, favorite, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Worst, The Last of Us Part 2, I guess. Hardest game rage. Uh-huh. That's a tough one, because I don't think... Well, I guess Eggman Land from Sonic Unleashed on the PlayStation 2. Oh my god, yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure... I never beat that level on the PS2 version, so... Yeah, I got mad as fuck during that. Like, just... Ugh. I never finished the PS2 version. That's how hard I raged because of that level. Alright. If you could pick one game to remake, what would it be? You know, that's honestly a good question because there's a lot of games that really could use a remake treatment. Um, let's see. Blood Rain would be one of them. The Suffering would also be, a unique remake. Um, mm, it'd be kind of cool to see, like, the first two Devil May Cry's remade, but mainly two, because one, it still looks good to this day and it still plays good, but, like, I don't know. I think two could really use the remake treatment more than, one, though. Um, I do believe, because a lot of people did talk about this, well, a few months back, but the Resident Evil 1 remake getting a remake again with like the modern RE engine, and I'm just like, no. Because in my opinion, remaking a remake just shows, in my opinion, that there is no creativity left. Like, remakes are fine if they're respectful, but like remaking a remake, no. Just no. And let's see. What game has one thing that ruins an amazing experience for you? Um, I feel like the biggest thing a game can really ruin, a game that can have that ruins an experience, I mean, would have to be the controls. Like, Manhunt, for example. Like, I'm not really a fan of like the whole camera deal around it. Um, yeah, for me, I think it has. Yeah, for me, I think a thing that a game would have that ruins an experience for me would have to be controls. Honestly, well, that and a bad story, but it can kind of go both ways, really. If the controls are bad, is the story good enough for me to continue? And if the story is dumb as shit, is it at least fun to play? It's a nice, it's a balance, really. It's just a balance. And finally, what is one game everyone has to try at least once? Shadow of the Colossus, hands down. It's a unique action game that actually has a lot of emotion into it, surprisingly. And, it's like, it's that game that, people use as, like, video games are art. Like, it's that game that people should at least try, even if the plot is, like, bare bones minimum. Um, but yeah, Shadow of the Colossus, hands down. Everyone should at least try once. And we are down to the final 3 questions from Snarf. Like that goofy little bastard from, what was it, Thundercats? Yeah, Snarf. But, I'm gonna be real, I don't really have good answers for these questions, but hey, why not? Video game question. Why isn't Pokemon Scarlet Violet being properly fixed and optimized? I don't know. I don't play Pokemon. It should be by now, but I don't know. Shovelware. Is there an answer? No idea what shovelware is. And finally, this one's a bit... Alright. Why are most Dragon Ball games shit? The RPGs are semi-decent, but stuck in Japan only. Why doesn't Bandai see the international market? I mean, we're getting Budokai Tenkaichi 4, and that made people lose their mind. We got, what was it, Dokkan? That app game. We still got Kakarot, and, Xenoverse 2, and, Fighters. So, I feel like Dragon Ball games, for the most part, where they are now, like, they're still going good, so... I don't know. I don't actually play a lot of Dragon Ball games, to be honest. The most I played was Budokai when I was young, but, like, that's it, really. But... that's all the questions I was given, and that's all the questions I will answer for this time. Hope y'all enjoyed. Should there ever be a second time I do this? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But overall, I had fun, and I hope y'all enjoy this in spite of it not being, high quality, but hey, that's okay. Have a good one.